Hey guys, welcome back. I hope you are having an amazing day. Let's get right into the stories. The next one is a pro-revenge story. Let me be clear up front. This story isn't mine. It's a pretty well-known tale in the city I used to live in, Portland, Oregon, and it's about a homeowner who got seriously ticked off at a Netflix producer. There'll be a note at the end about the guy this story is about, for those who are curious. All right, so nowadays, when streaming services are looking for places to set shows that take place in hipster, artsy cities in the US, they often choose Portland. With its quirky neighborhoods, trendy cafes, and vibrant street art, it's a prime location. They'll spruce up the streets, dress up extras in flannel and beanies, and essentially transform parts of the city to fit their vision. Usually, when producers do this, they'll pay each homeowner whose house is used as a backdrop a few grand for the licensing. That'll be important later. They set some rules, like no modern cars in view, no one coming out of doors facing the street, and you have to park your vehicles elsewhere. Well, in 2018, a producer from Netflix came to town with plans to use Portland as the setting for a new series about an up-and-coming indie band in the Pacific Northwest. The production went to the city for permits and sent out notices to homeowners about the filming dates. However, to the homeowners' dismay, the notice also stated that the production company wouldn't be compensating them for using their homes as backdrops. This didn't sit well with the residents, who turned to the city for help, only to be told it was their civic duty to allow it. Most people begrudgingly agreed, but one homeowner didn't. He decided to get revenge on the production, trying to sabotage their shooting whenever he could. First, he left his car parked in front of his house, only to have it towed before filming began. He threatened legal action against Netflix, but they brushed him off. He forbade the use of his home in any shots, but the production company got the city to make him back down. Eventually, he'd had enough, so he waited until he was sure they were filming. When the day came that his house was being used as a background, the homeowner grabbed a massive Confederate flag and hung it out of one of his top windows. The production company freaked out. They knew that this ruined any shot they'd used there, and worse, they started questioning whether he'd put the flag up earlier. Had all the previous shots, some showing the house from across the street, been ruined too? They turned to the city for help, and the city just basically shrugged, saying it was his First Amendment right, and implied that had the production company paid the homeowners, as was customary, then this probably wouldn't have happened. In the end, the production company had to stop shooting and go to the homeowner, begging him to remove the offensive flag. He did, but only after his lawyer got a contract in writing that required the production company to pay all the homeowners for having their homes in the shots. The flag came down, and shooting wrapped in a day. Interestingly, it's said that in the series, called GarageBand, there are several shots where you can see a bright red Confederate flag flying from one of the houses in the background. That stunt cost a Netflix producer a fortune and pushed production back at least 6 months while they tried to find every single instance where the flag appeared in the background. This homeowner would go on to gain infamy for an unrelated reason, but that's a story for another time. Even so, he lives on among the legends of that city, both for his revenge against a streaming giant and his later notoriety. The first one is an entitled people story. I worked my butt off for years to be able to afford my dream home. I wanted a nice big house with a pool in the backyard so I could relax and cool off during the hot summer months. After saving up enough money, I finally found the perfect place. It had 5 bedrooms, a massive open-concept main floor, and best of all, a huge in-ground pool in the backyard. I was so excited when I moved in last summer. Every day when I got home from work, I'd change into my swim trunks and take a refreshing dip. That pool was my personal oasis where I could unwind and de-stress. Things were great, until the neighborhood Karen showed up. I first met Karen a few weeks after moving in. I was floating around in my pool when I heard a shrill voice yelling from over the fence. "Excuse me, can I ask what you think you're doing?" I looked over to see a middle-aged woman with a short bob haircut glaring at me. "Ooh, swimming in my pool," I replied, confused. "Well, do you think you could keep it down with all that splashing?" she huffed. Some of us are trying to enjoy a peaceful afternoon. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I'm just swimming quietly in my own backyard, I said. I think I have a right to do that. She scowled at me. We'll see about that, she said, before storming off. A few days later, I ran into her again while mowing my lawn. That's when she introduced herself as Karen, my new neighbor. I've already filed a noise complaint about you, she informed me smugly. The neighborhood committee will be in touch. I tried to explain that I wasn't doing anything wrong, but Karen refused to listen. Over the next few weeks, she filed complaint after complaint about me, even calling the cops a few times. Every day when I got home from work, she'd be glaring at me from her yard as soon as I stepped into my pool. I started to get nervous that she'd cause real problems for me, so I contacted the neighborhood committee to get their advice. They told me Karen didn't actually have any grounds to stop me from using my own pool on my own property. One hot Saturday afternoon, I was floating on my back with my eyes closed, finally feeling relaxed. Suddenly, I heard Karen's shrill voice shouting, "Get out of my pool right now!" My eyes flew open and I nearly drowned myself. Karen was standing at the edge of the pool yelling at me furiously. "What are you talking about? This is my pool," I said, climbing out of the water. "Absolutely not!" she shrieked. "I've had enough of your insolence. This pool belongs to me, and if you won't share, I'm claiming it as my own." I stared at her in disbelief. "You can't just take my pool from my own backyard." Her face turned red with anger. "How dare you speak to me that way? I'm calling the police." She whipped out her phone, but I'd already had enough. I pulled out my phone and dialed cop myself. When the cops arrived, Karen immediately tried to convince them that the pool belonged to her. "This delinquent homeowner has been nothing but a menace since he moved in. He refuses to share the pool that is rightfully mine," she claimed dramatically. Luckily, the cops seemed to recognize pretty quickly that Karen was crazy. After I showed them my property deed and pool maintenance invoices in my name, they agreed the pool definitely belonged to me. "Ma'am, this man has documented proof that this is his private property that you are trespassing on," the officer told Karen. "That's absurd!" Karen shrieked. "I demand you remove this man at once!" The cops told Karen very clearly that she did not own my pool, and if she set foot on my property again, she'd be arrested for trespassing. "You can't threaten me like that, I know my rights," she yelled as the cops escorted her back to her house. I thought that would be the end of my troubles with Karen, but boy was I wrong. A few nights later, I was fast asleep when I heard a huge splash coming from my backyard. I bolted out of bed and looked out the window to see a soaking wet Karen climbing out of my pool. I raced outside and turned on the outdoor lights. "What the hell are you doing in my pool?" I shouted. "It's my pool and I'm going for a swim!" she hollered back defiantly. That was it. I immediately called the cops again. This time when they arrived, they found Karen wrapped in a towel trying to sneak back to her house. The cops arrested her on the spot for trespassing and attempted theft, since she admitted the pool was not actually hers. Karen caused a huge scene, screaming that she was going to sue me. But the cops weren't putting up with any of her nonsense. At her court date, the judge lectured Karen and sentenced her to 6 months probation. She also had to pay a $2,000 fine for her ridiculous behavior. The judge also approved a restraining order against her, so now she's legally not allowed to go anywhere near me or my precious pool ever again. I'm just glad I got the cops involved early on, before her crazy demands and entitled attitude could escalate even further. After her probation, Karen moved away, much to the delight of me and the rest of our neighbors. Now I can finally enjoy my pool in peace and quiet. No more dealing with entitled Karens trying to steal from me. The cops and the justice system certainly taught her the hard lesson that she can't just take whatever she wants from others. The next one is a petty revenge story. This happened several years ago. I rented from a social housing society in the Netherlands. Over here, the renter is responsible for flooring, wallpaper, or paint, gardening themselves. I had taken great care and great pride in both decorating the house and growing a beautiful garden. When I moved, I talked with the next tenant to see what she wanted to keep, but for a price, of course. That's how things are over here. But she was cheap and refused to agree upon a reasonable price for the lot. I got the feeling she gambled I was not able to remove the lot anyway. She gambled wrong. I gathered a bunch of friends, and within 2 days everything was gone. Bare concrete floors, bare concrete walls, bare old dirty wooden stairs, the minimal kitchen. And the garden was just an empty, flat, black soil wasteland. Everything was gone, including the 3x5 wooden shed. The fence at the very back, gone. All the nice tiles, plants, and flowers, bushes, and a pear tree, gone. I was very pleased when I closed the door of that house behind me one final time. Later, I heard from a friend who lived a couple of houses down the road from that house that the new lady was upset with how she found the place, but there was nothing she could do about it. Well, perhaps the lady learned a thing. The next one is a malicious compliance story. This is an incident where I refused to maliciously comply because it would have resulted in someone getting hurt and was then proven right. Sorry if this isn't allowed. I work in the distribution center for an electrical appliance brand. I'm a forklift operator. We use fork trucks to transport smaller appliances on pallets, such as microwaves and vacuum cleaners, but we use counterbalance trucks with clamp attachments for transporting large appliances, such as washing machines and fridges. Our fridges can be packaged 2 different ways. Sometimes they are in boxes, with polystyrene for protection, and sometimes there is just plastic over the polystyrene. The plastic packaged fridges are slippery and can sometimes slip from the clamps, while the boxed fridges don't slip easily because there is more friction. This is important to the story. This morning, I was tipping a container full of fridges. They were all plastic packaged. To fit as much as possible on the container, the loaders put fridges lying on their side on top of fridges that are standing upright. These top fridges can be fiddly to take out, and once out they are placed on what I call the flipper, which is a pile of pallets stuck together with a flat board stuck on top. We use the edge to rotate the fridge upright. As I was taking one of these top fridges out, it slipped within the clamp. I still had a hold of it, but it was now at an angle with the top pointing towards the ground, and now almost impossible to put down without damaging it. We don't get in trouble for damages. Management accepts that stuff gets damaged sometimes. Also, most damages are just to the packaging, so they just need to be repackaged. However, we try to save something if we can. This was not one of the times where this would be likely. One of my coworkers still wanted to save it, and was standing behind the flipper ready to grab it. He told me to open my clamps slightly and let it fall slowly. This only works with boxed fridges. There is no friction to stop or slow down a plastic-wrapped fridge, even with the tiniest amount of slack. Where he was standing, he was in danger of being hit by the fridge, and I told him so. The other guys chimed in and told me to let it go, and I refused until he moved away, which he finally did. As predicted, I opened my clamps the tiniest amount and it dropped fast, with the back end bouncing upwards right to where his face would have been. Had I maliciously complied, he might have ended up with a broken nose or jaw. "Told you," I said. Despite the drop, there was minimal damage, just a small crack in the polystyrene. The next one is an entitled People story. Several years ago, I heard my sweet neighbor and another woman arguing on the sidewalk. I looked closer and noticed they were both pulling a plant pot in different directions and about to fight. No clue what was up, but knew my neighbor. If she was arguing, she was right. Me and my husband went over to intervene. My husband wanted to help make peace. Me, I was going to help my neighbor, no questions asked. Why the argument? The other woman was a new neighbor. Our nice neighbor noticed her plant pots were missing and were in the new neighbor's yard. Yep, new neighbor had stolen nice neighbor's plants, plant pots and yard decor, and decorated her yard with it. My nice neighbor had hand-painted several pots that were in her yard, thus they were easy to identify as hers. We all walked over to the new neighbor's yard to get our other neighbor's stuff back. When we got to the new neighbor's yard, we noticed several things looked both weird and very familiar. Oh yeah, and the new neighbor had called the cops on us, or at least someone did. Anyway, the new neighbor had planted patches of different types of grass all over the yard in a checkerboard pattern, as well, mismatched shrubs and flowers. I looked at our house a little closer. Yep, we were missing grass patches from the side of the house and one of our shrubs. When the police arrived, the new neighbor was adamant the plants, pots, grass, shrubs, and yard decor were hers. She informed the cops she dug them up from other yards in the middle of the night and planted them. Yep, she claimed finders keepers. Didn't quite work out. My nice neighbor insisted on pressing charges for petty theft and destruction of property. We just dug up our grass patches and replanted them. Some of them even survived it. Nosy neighbors kept walking by after the new neighbor was arrested. As we were digging things up, we explained why to them. Neighbors kept recognizing their stuff from her yard. One neighbor asked if we'd seen a picnic table as his was missing. We hadn't thought to check the backyard. Yep, picnic table and a yard full of her finders keepers haul. She moved pretty much right afterward. We didn't miss her. The next one is an entitled parents story. I'm a 27-year-old female. My sister is about 29. Ever since our mother, age 58, got remarried a few years ago, we've had a complicated relationship ever since. It came to a point where my sister and brother-in-law went completely no contact due to our mother's behavior. Before and after she got married, our mother wanted to bring our family together by using some unhealthy methods. After some research, me and my sister realized she had been gaslighting and manipulating us. Because of our mom's behavior towards us, we went into counseling and have gotten better with setting up boundaries with our mom. But this isn't exactly the end of this whole thing. Last year, my sister had her first child. This was when she and my brother-in-law were still no contact. They made an exception for her to come and see the baby, since it was her grandchild. However, her husband wasn't permitted. 1, because my sister didn't want him there, and 2, because there could be a limited number of people in the room. When my mother learned her new hubby couldn't see the baby, she got really offended and said that he had a right to see his grandchild. For some context, our father died suddenly back in 2016, so we don't see anyone else as the baby's grandfather. Anyways, months later, my mom and my sister are beginning to patch things up with our mother, but there's still a bit of uneasiness about the whole situation. Our mom once told us that we didn't have to have a relationship with her new husband, and that he wasn't replacing our dad, and that he couldn't replace our father as the baby's grandfather. However, our mother, being our mother, has completely done the opposite. First of all, she refers to her hubby as the baby's grandfather, against my sister's wishes, even coming up with a grandpa name. This makes my sister feel uncomfortable. With me, she talks to me like a child, telling me to say hello to her hubby and make eye contact when he's in the same room. She's also asked us on multiple occasions to accept her new hubby into the family. I know this sounds ridiculous and mean, but we just don't like him, and we don't like the way our mother has acted when he came into our lives. Our mother's behavior changed dramatically when he started dating her. He brings out a narcissistic side we never knew she had. The next one is an entitled parent story. My mother has been losing her mind for a while now. She has several internet boyfriends she met on Facebook, all of them famous men, and all of them needing money. She has spent thousands in cash deposits, prepaid Visa gift cards, Bitcoin ATM transfers, bought plane tickets, sent them pictures of her Wells Fargo bank statements. You name a scam, and she has fallen for it. I've seen the messages with my own eyes. She recently called my brother and admitted she was broke and told him he needed to fix it. She received a fake $10K check from one of these people and deposited it into her bank account and started reading her own checks to pay her bills. All of these checks have now bounced. I'm trying to catch them and make them right so she doesn't get fraud charges on top of being broke. Her utilities were turned off this week. I fixed it. She was so far behind on her mortgage that they were going to serve her with foreclosure paperwork last Friday. My brother paid the amount due to stop that process. She literally has $100K plus in credit card debt and has been trying to save the money for a bankruptcy attorney. I told her I would front the retainer. This has all happened in only the last 8 days. We're $5K deep in stopping the bleeding, and who knows what is still coming. We made her sign power of attorney over to us on Monday as a contingency for our help. She also signed a petition for voluntary conservatorship that will have to go in front of a judge. She swore to us she was done talking to these men. I personally took her phone and deleted the apps she uses to talk to them and the hundreds of different numbers they have been using to text her from. Blocked everything I could. She swore again she's cut all contact and would not have anything else to do with them. Last night, she accidentally texted my brother from one of the apps I positively know I deleted. So my brother and I decided she clearly can't be trusted and doesn't need a phone with apps or internet capability. She's like a damn meth head and we have to blow up the double wide that houses her meth lab. So I bought her a jitterbug flip phone. Only thing I could get my hands on and activated today. Activated it, charged it, and preloaded it with all of the contacts I can think of that she'll need for the next few days. Doctors, friends, both of her children. I took it over to her house, grabbed her iPhone and put it in my purse, and then I pulled out the jitterbug and told her this was her new phone for right now. She flipped her wig, demanded I give it back to her. I don't have the authority to take it away from her. She needs that phone. Then she freely admitted she's been texting at least one of the men, the leader of the pack. Of course, she re-downloaded those apps. She's in love with him, and the heart wants what it wants. I told her she'll just have to keep wanting. She's not getting her phone back. She moved to lock the door so I couldn't leave. I beat her to it and ran out to my car. Pulled off with her standing in the driveway screaming at me. I stopped at the gas station just down from her house to sit for a second because my hands were shaking. Evidently, this gave her enough time to get past me because she beat me back to my house. My husband let her inside and made my daughter go back upstairs so she wasn't actively watching this go down. I get home and she meets me in my garage. I want my phone back just over and over. I kept telling her no, and she needed to leave. She refused to leave without her phone. I said I would call the police. My daughter is here and she's being erratic and she needs to leave. Finally, my husband convinced her we needed to go outside for this conversation so my daughter couldn't hear it. We go out on the front porch, and this woman spits straight up venom at me for 15 solid minutes. I'm the greatest disappointment of her life. She wishes I was never born. She should have let my abusive ex-husband beat me to death instead of loaning me the retainer for my divorce attorney in 2017 because that's why she's broke. You name it, she said it. She even threatened to beat me senseless with her cane. I just kept telling her I was sorry she feels that way, and I'm not giving it back, so she should leave. She finally said that she's going to make sure she gives my information to all these scammers I'm so worried about, my SSI and my address so they can show up at my house and tell me how they really feel. And she is not responsible for whatever happens next. And then she finally left. I came inside and literally sobbed on the bathroom floor. Have been for a couple of hours now. What kind of mother tells their kid she wishes their abusive ex had succeeded in beating them to death? What kind of grandparent threatens to give out the address to the home her grandkid lives in? I have long been suspecting some early onset dementia, and we literally had a neurologist appointment tomorrow after waiting 3 months for it. That's the thread I've been holding on to. This isn't my mother. This is the disease that's been eating her brain. She said she's not going now. I wonder if she'll still show up for the bankruptcy attorney app she has tomorrow that I'm supposed to be fronting. She was absolutely like an unhinged, raving addict. Just give it back for tonight and I'll give it to you in the morning. She told me she has one of his 176 numbers memorized and will just call him as soon as she gets home. She wasn't bluffing. She did add a new contact with his name, but I deleted it from the parental control app already tonight. She also said she hopes this new phone has long distance because she will stay up all night, calling China so my bill is high. I'm ready to just hand her back the damn phone and tell her to go jump. You won't get another penny from me, so don't call me or mine for another damn thing as long as you live. When these bad checks keep bouncing and they come after you with charges, I don't care. When your utilities get turned off again, sit there in the dark and use your love for this fake-ass internet boyfriend to keep you alive. And when your house goes into foreclosure again, I will wave at you and your little shopping cart full of crap when I drive by you on the street. I'm just so done right now. So done. Thank you for watching. I would really appreciate it if you could like the video and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already.